This week at Outsider Reviews, I've got the Cadillac Optiq. But since I own the Chevrolet Equinox EV RS all-wheel drive, I figured let's do a comparison. Hey everybody, and welcome to Outsider Reviews. My name is Pat. I got my beautiful wife Panna behind the camera. And as I've mentioned, this is going to be a comparison. Now, no news to anybody is this one's more expensive. But the whole purpose of the comparison is, but is it worth it? When you compare what you're getting over here compared to what you're getting over here, does the jump make sense? So that's what this is all about. And I'm not a dealer representative, a car salesman, or any affiliation with these guys. I actually bought that one, and this is a press vehicle for me to review. So they don't even know I'm doing a comparison, but I decided, why not? Let's get right into appearances matter. Right here, the Optiq, you've got a nice glass and lit up design over here, big Cadillac logo. The license plate is actually because I have also a front license plate on mine. No, it's not. It's because that's the press vehicle, and I'm not gonna mess around with that. And you have a little bit of a black fascia over here. This is the sport trim. So obviously it's not going to be the high luxury trim, the premium trim, but I think this is a good comparison because over here, what we have is the Equinox EV RS, but it's not the top trim RS, so still got the front plate. I know I should take that off, but whatever. And you just have a straight line design, bow tie, black area, and if you go with the LT, this area is all going to be body colored. So there's a couple of differences there, but overall that is very subjective. The LED lights. Now, one thing I do want to point out is a lot of people have been mentioning these are the headlights over here, and in winter and blizzard area, this could be problematic. Snow gets jumped on. Now, I live north of Quebec City, folks. I drive through a lot of blizzard. I've had this since mid-December 2024. It's a 2025, by the way. That has not happened to me, not yet, but it is freaking cold here in the winter, so we don't really get that wet packable snow. We get that little bit dry stuff, so maybe that has to do with it, but that's not an issue. However, you can see that here it's all streamlined. These are all the headlights here, several LED headlights, and you have not that worry to go about. They also do not have front trucks. None of them do. So that's that. Let's go into the rim design. Let's start with the Cadillac. We're gonna go always Cadillac and then Chevrolet. Now, over here, I've got a nice shiny pair of Continental. Now, it's the same kind of tire as the Equinox has, and it's a 21-inch tire. So, same diameter, just a different design, and obviously a Cadillac logo over here. And I've got 21-inch Continental cross contact. Same thing, they come from the manufacturer, which, yeah. Different design. In this particular case, I couldn't care less. They're both black glossy design. They both have, you know, some kind of design to it. They're very, very similar. You guys comment below if you prefer one or the other, but I'm gonna call a tie in this aspect. Right above that is, let's go back to the Cadillac. I've got a powered charge port cover. So this is a CCS charge point, and it's motorized, but it's better than what the Lyriq had offered. The Lyriq offered the one that slid down, and that the motor kind of I felt like that motor was struggling, and that is a bit of a issue. So, but they motorized this one in that sense. You know what? I have a little bit less of an issue. It seems like a little bit more of a solid build, and over here, I have just a plain old push, non-mechanical, same thing, CCS. They both charge 150 kilowatt charging speed, so that's gonna be basically a tie as well. I couldn't care less whether it's motorized or not. If you guys do, that is all fine, but this has been working for me just as well. Time to get some specs, and that's the easy part for me because 300 horsepower, 355 pounds-feet of torque, both of them 85 kilowatt battery. However, when it comes to the range, this is 485 kilometers or 302 miles. The Equinox EV, 495 kilometers, 307 miles. So you got a 5-mile difference, 10-kilometer difference in range. I have a theory. I think it all has to do with that front fascia. So if we swing over here, look how much of a flat front fascia we have. It is just a flat wall there. And then when we come over here, the Equinox, it's a little bit less flat, a little bit more angle, a little bit more smooth and rounded off here at the hood. That's my theory, as well as we all know that if you have a luxury vehicle, it requires more juice because there's actually more features in there. You know, perhaps a little bit more electric being used there. But that's just my theory as far as the range, because they both have 85 kilowatt hour battery, same size of battery, different specs for the range. And that's probably because also the Cadillac has a little bit more hardware when it comes to suspension. We are talking about, if I'm looking at the Equinox EV, just a regular independent suspension. If we're talking about the Cadillac Optiq, you get a 5-link suspension system as well as adaptive dampers. So, you know, maybe it's those parts that are making it a little bit heavier. I don't know, but all in all, it's relatively the same kind of range. When you're getting a 10-kilometer difference, let's face it, same kind of range. So if we come in the middle here, I have them both locked. Here, I'll lock this one. You'll see that I have powered mirror over here, and this one is not powered. See, lock it again. There's no movement happening over there, so that is another thing that you can see a difference as far as features. But they both feature 360 degree camera, and so they both have the same kind of features. They both have flush door handles. This one is pretty different. It's like a nice square. Oh. Here we go. It's popping out. You just stick your hand in here and it unlocks. Now it's only for the front doors that it will do so. You stick your hand in here and unlock. I do like this system because it's kind of a nice big flat and it just feels very sturdy. However, let's lock it up. If I'm going over here for the Cadillac, let's do the same thing here. I'll push here at the handle. It is a little bit thinner. Well, it's about half the size, I would say, and it's a different angle. I'm not a big fan of this particular angle, but it's the same thing. You stick your hand in both and it'll unlock front and back, so that's just another extra feature. I just don't like this setup. If they were to be the same handles, I think people wouldn't complain because they're still flush when the vehicle's in movement and when the doors are locked. This feels a little bit flimsy to me, and the angle of it, I just prefer the Equinox. So the Equinox gets my vote on the door handle situation. Let's talk a little bit about cargo space and trunk opening. First and foremost, this has I have it. It's not going to work right now because I just did it, but it's got the approach system where you just stand back here with your groceries and it would open up. Secondary is remote, and then you have this big old button over here. But before I go there, this is naked. I do not have a rear wiper. So there is something that the Equinox EV can do that the Optiq cannot do, and I'll show you in a bit because that has a rear wiper. But let's just get into some cargo space first and foremost. Push that Cadillac symbol. I like that. I like the fact I just push that big old button. Now, they're both featuring about the same amount of cargo space. If you're looking at the specs, it's basically going to tell you. This one has 26 cubic feet and 57 cubic feet with the seats down. The Equinox EV has 26.4 and 57.2. But that doesn't tell the whole story. Now, I have a boat dropped to this level because you can go higher. It's the same for boat vehicle. I can go a little higher here if you want. I had it drop to the maximum level here. There we go. But when I open it here, look at this storage area. It is slimmer than the one I'm going to show you in the Equinox. So let's put this briefcase back. Let's put this one back to the upper level over here. Yeah, let's go to the Equinox. Equinox EV. It'd be kind of cool if I could just push this logo, but yeah, here's a wiper. Huh? That's a cool feature. And I also noticed that it's a little bit more upright as opposed to the Optiq. Seems to be more slanted, and maybe that's why they didn't put a rear wiper. But by God, I want a rear wiper on my vehicle, especially in the wintertime. Now they both have this feature that for the rear backup camera, there's a washer. It's gonna wash the spray the camera, so they both have that feature, but only one has a wiper. Pressing that button. Now over here, that is one thing I did not like about my Equinox EV is how thin the piece of rubber is. Now if it was to be the whole piece over here, this wouldn't be an issue, but it's literally the one that's the risen part here that is where you have to touch. So in the winter when you have gloves, not exactly convenient. Cargo space, yeah, there's like a 0.6 cubic feet difference. And look at this. This is a much bigger area. I have 2 gallons of windshield wiper fluid. I have my cables here. This is my personal car, so you know I always keep fluid on me on the vehicle at all times. Especially right now, my wife's the one driving it, so she goes through that pretty fast, right, babe? And yeah, overall same amount of storage, but you have like 0.4 or 0.6 cubic feet difference. Not a big deal, but I do like that this has a much bigger area that I can put like a lot more stuff in it, because the Optiq has got room for cables, and that's basically it in my opinion. Same thing, power tailgate, and big fan of this little guy here. Now, as we go into the vehicle in the back row, you can start seeing a lot of the finer things in life, a lot of choice of material. So I have some kind of carpentry over here. I can start seeing the 19 speaker AKG sound system, which is definitely a plus. And you can have a metallic door handle and a choice of carpentry. Anyway, some carpet on the side here. When I go in, I'm looking at 38 inches of legroom. There's not going to be any difference in the specs for headroom, legroom. It's 38 inches of legroom and such. I have 2 USB-Cs and an outlet here in the back of the Optiq. Seats, you can tell it's a little bit more refined here. We got some nice leather seats. I still have cup holders and such. It's the whole architecture of the whole vehicle is essentially the same. It's just you have some nicer elements. And no, this one does not recline either. Let's go in the back of the Equinox. Oh, you were recording? Okay. Now in the back of the Equinox, I got some plastic. A little bit more plastic. Oh, I got some soft material, but there definitely is no use of carpet or yeah, other kind of fabric in here. But I mean, where you're gonna rest your elbows is still kind of soft. As I get in, I'm still looking at 38 inches of leg room. I'm also looking at my own ventilation, just like in the Optiq. I don't know if I show you that, but it's not tri-zone control in either vehicle. 2 USB-Cs, same, but I do not have that 3-prong outlet over here. So that is another thing that the Optiq will do a little bit different, is that it has the addition of a 3-prong outlet. I do have a leatherette seat, and it's perforated. And as far as the seat comfort, I mean, we're looking at the same kind of seat comfort, same kind of leg room, headroom, different kind of style in the back of the seats. On mine, I do have my emergency kit where I have my Israeli bandages, my tourniquet, my kid's USB cable. So that does not come with the Optiq, folks. It also doesn't come with the Equinox when you buy it. And if you see a lot of white fur around, yeah, the dog fur is also not included in the Equinox when you're going to purchase yours. Now, as soon as I get into the Cadillac Optiq, I've got same kind of material as in the back. I had a nice big metallic AKG speaker, but also on my 8-way power adjustment and 2 memory setting, as well as heated seats. Now you'll notice that this sports trim does not have the ventilated seats. So, you know, very, that kind of surprised me at first. Coming in, you're going to see right away that 33-inch display is one continuous display, a nice curved display, no divider into it and all that stuff. But all in all, the display setting and everything, the functionality of it, the gauge cluster, the core of it is basically going to be the same. It's just all going to look the same. No wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto in both. But they're basically the same, just different sizes. Now, also, below that is the different kind of toggles. So you got metallic kind of toggles for your HVAC controls. Remember that, because I'm going to point out a big difference now. And then you have this kind of floating center area where I have a track wheel, I have my volume control, and I have shortcuts. I got 2 cup holders, and then I got a very big open space down here. So that is very different in design. But one thing I absolutely do enjoy of this is if I take out my device, my cell phone, here we go. These are my notes. My wireless charger is right here. I like that. I really like that. I think this is very functional, and this is basically your center console. It is on the thin side, but there's 2 USB-Cs in there and a 12-volt charger. But yeah, it's very on the thin side, but it just gives you a little bit more hip space, in my opinion. And then the steering wheel. I mean, I have a still 3-prong kind of steering wheel, lots of buttons, and of course, Super Cruise included. So that is definitely another key advantage. I love Super Cruise, hands-free driving assist, level 2 driving. And for this one, I have a mirror that turns into the rear camera. There it is. And over here are your controls. So see, this is not a rear wiper control. This is literally a rear camera washer. All in all, it's a pretty nice interior, very comfortable seat. And I don't have a massage function, which I kind of expected, but no massage function. And lastly, I got a fixed glass roof over here. And I just want to point out one very last thing. Sorry, I know the glass roof is supposed to, if you look at the front here, a very different kind of dash system. And that is going to come in handy because there was a recall on the front dash for the Equinox. Let's go into Equinox now. Now here I am in my Equinox EV RS. Again, not the top trim RS, but also not the top trim luxury Cadillac Optiq. So that's very good to remember. You'll see that I do not have any memory function. I do have power adjustments on my side, and that's 6-way power adjustment. And on the passenger side, you have manual adjustment, which the Optiq has power adjustment for both. So it's 8-way for both passenger and driver. Here's just 6-way power adjustment. So there's that. As far as steering wheel, you'll notice that I do not have Super Cruise. Sad, but it's still an option that you can get in the Equinox. But let's keep point when I talk price, that one's included. Now let's go for the display. It's not one curvy one. There's like a divider here. It looks like a little bit mishmash. But I will tell you this: I prefer this one. Yeah, I do. It's bigger. It actually is bigger, like as far as like width wise. The other one is more narrow. Yeah, it's 33-inch, but when you look at this, I find this a little bit bigger. The icons are bigger. It's still just as responsive. But one thing I noticed when I was playing around over there is I can get prime video on the Cadillac, and that's just not an option on my Equinox. So if you like watching TV while you're charging, this may become one of those things that maybe the Optiq is better for you. But as far as the screen layout and the HVAC, I like that the HVAC is always here. And I like that although the other one had heated seats as well, this has heated seats, not ventilated, even though it's perforated leather. It's through the screen, so it's not a hard button on the door like the Optiq does. And I still have some climate controls, but different kind of format. So I have some toggles here, and then I have my knob. So I do not have dual climate control, which the Cadillac Optiq has, and that's something you'd have to go to the top trim of the RS to get. But I like having the knob for my temperature, and I like having the knob for the fan. as we look at the center area here, much different system. So this whole part is there as opposed to the Cadillac. It's not. And this is where my wireless charger, but I find that if they were to have that slit here like they did in the Cadillac, I could use this space. Now the fact that I have to put my phone here to charge, I don't really want to have anything else in the storage area, because then I have to move stuff out of the way just to get access to my phone. So I think that the Cadillac did a much better job with this configuration as a whole. I like this storage here, and I got 2 USB-Cs here. And the center console is the same width, and I don't have any kind of connection in this one. And surprisingly enough, this one's got less stuff in it than this mine, but I find that this is like a little bit deeper. I prefer to like this storage, even though it's roughly the same size. And I still have underneath here, which is definitely usable space. And the big note that I'm gonna have is over to the Optiq, this area is kind of like a carpet material. Here it's just a slide in and out, get this out and clean it, right? But I guess if you can afford a Cadillac, maybe you have a subscription for a detailer to clean your car every week. Maybe not. But I will say that I prefer this kind of setup over here. As far as the steering wheel, I'm dealing with hard buttons as opposed to over there. It's kind of like a combination of like tactile, and you still get a sensation of pushing down, but I prefer these kind of hard buttons. To me, it just feels better. And again, I got a rear wiper, so look at that back there. Look at this thing go, huh? Cadillac can't do this. Take that, Cadillac. And another thing I found kind of funny when I looked up in the Cadillac is it can't do this either. And this time of the year where, you know, it's a nice cold fall. I like cold weather, not, you know, winter cold. Well, actually, I like all kind of cold weather, but in this kind of weather, you know, a nice breeze coming in and stuff, that might be one of the things that they should have incorporated in the Optiq, personally speaking. But otherwise, you're gonna look at, here's the dash I was talking about. So this kind of layout has made it so that there's a glare. A lot of people complain about the glare, and there's a recall for that they put something over it. It's like a mat that perfectly fits there. Probably gonna make it look a little bit like the Optiq, personally. But yeah, and another thing is you can go and get a heads-up display in an Optiq, but not in the Equinox. So that's another thing that you can change. I'd have to go top trim to get the camera mirror. I just have a simple mirror over here. But I just find that my Equinox is very easy to clean, very easy to maintain. And yeah, it may look a little bit cheaper to some, but as far as the seat comfort and such, I find that I don't see any difference. And whether it's the adjustments and everything, for me, having person with back problems and knee problems, I am equally comfortable in both the Cadillac Optiq and the Equinox EV. Time to test the Cadillac Optiq. Obviously, I've had it all week, so I kind of know a little bit what to expect. I'm in sports mode, and right there, so much power, but not a big difference between the Optiq and the Equinox EV. It's, if you go for option 1, now for 2026, you have different options. You have the advanced all-wheel drive, that's over 400 horsepower, and that's going to be a lot more powerful than the Equinox EV. And that's what I think the Optiq should have started at with power output. Personally, I don't think they should have made it identical to the Equinox EV. I think that was a bit of a mistake. However, driving the Optiq, is it different than the Equinox? Yes. As I'm about to hit another bump here, that is the difference. A lot less bounce back. Those adaptive damper suspension, they make a huge difference in handling, as well as I'm putting in the work for a turn here, almost no body roll. So you have that slight change in the suspension that makes a big difference when you're driving, when you're hitting bumps, or when you're decide to drive a little bit more aggressively. It just feels like it's a little bit more planted and controlled, as well as more smooth and comfortable. It can do both. Adaptive dampers are really good that way. Range, it's very similar. I don't think there's a big discrepancy in range. And as far as quietness, now one thing that I will note is because a lot of fabric is being used here, carpet fabric and also felt fabric into the doors, that always helps for soundproofing. And even more so when you're a guy that likes to carry a sports bottle here and you like to put it in the door here, easy access. It's lined with felt, and so you don't hear that rattling of the bottles or objects in the door just because it's lined with felt. I find that to be a very good thing. But another pro for the Optiq, of course, is Super Cruise. Now, Super Cruise hands-free driving assist, as I'm, well, you know, in the country. So there's a tractor now in front of me, and there's a curve. Yeah, let's go. Yes. And so Super Cruise hands-free driving, and what's new in the last updates is that it will tell you when you have a navigation, when you have a route set up with a Google built-in, not an outside app, it'll tell you, you know what, you need to go into the right lane in order to get your next exit. Something that wasn't part of the system before, so I can definitely appreciate that they keep improving that. I think soon enough it will not, then eventually it will make that lane change for you instead of just notifying you. I think that obviously is going to be the next step for Super Cruise. I'd like it to automatically change the lane. I haven't noticed that happening with my system. I don't think that's part of the update. I think it's just on the screen, on your driver information, it tells you you need to switch lanes, which is kind of, I don't know how useful that is, because the Google navigation is already telling me I should be in that lane. So for Super Cruise to be doing that, it should change your lane for you, in my opinion, but that's not what I've been noticing here in Canada. Perhaps in the US there's a different system. If you guys comment below, tell me. Overall, driving wise, I love that how comfortable this is, and the seat comfort is really good, but I'm not noticing much more of an upgrade as far as seat comfort. They're both equally comfortable, whether you go with the Equinox EV or the Optiq. The fact that yeah, mine is leatherette and this is leather, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Now, I did make a tiny error, I think, earlier when I spoke in a video. I think I said I have the Sport Premium. This is not the Sport Premium, this is the Sport Trim. A couple of differences there, such as Sport Premium would get massage function. I do not have the massage functions and such, but mine is still $70,000 and the Equinox is still around $54,000. So there lies the question, with all the handling and maybe the fact that it sounds a little bit more soundproofed and such, maybe because of the materials being used and such, the sound system and stuff. It really is going to depend on what is important to you, because as much as I've tried to look for vehicles like Chevy Equinox, it's an option to get Super Cruise that you can get. Most dealers don't have that in stock. You pretty much need to buy an Optiq if you want that vehicle to have Super Cruise. Otherwise, you'd have to do a special order for the Chevrolet Equinox to have Super Cruise. Comment below if you guys have noticed the same thing, because that's what I am noticing. But overall, to conclude this comparison video, things I like more in the Equinox: rear wiper, definitely better. I find the rear window visibility is a little bit better. I think the rear window drops a little bit more, and the fact that there's a rear wiper, that's cool. I like that. I like the screen layout. Yeah, I know you guys are telling me you prefer that over the 33-inch curved display. Yeah, because it's, I mean, you know, bigger, like wider. It's not longer, but it's definitely wider, and it has HVAC controls, advanced HVAC controls. permanently set at the bottom of the Equinox, as well as a dial for temperature, dial for the fan, and this is toggles. I just like that setup better. However, I like obviously the material use inside here more. The Optiq is better as far as the interior use. That there's a plastic here, it's like white and it looks like a white ceramic, really nice. Super Cruise, absolutely love Super Cruise. It makes long drive so easy and effortless. I absolutely adore Super Cruise. And the adaptive dampers to finish with is just, it is a kind of a big deal that you feel, just because when you hit a bump and sometimes you'll get a bounce back from the Equinox, you do not get that when you're driving the Optiq. And lastly, I would probably go for the advanced all-wheel drive, which over 400 horsepower kind of size of Optiq. So I do miss the fact that in the trunk space, underneath the flooring, there's more room in the Equinox. I kind of don't understand why that is. They're basically the same vehicle. So, and that the Equinox, you can open the sunroof. I like that aspect of it. This is a fixed glass. Not too sure where they're going for that, and I don't like the handles on the Optiq. So overall, it kind of depends what you'd like, but I think winner is the Optiq, just because of the adaptive dampers and the standard Super Cruise. Comment below, let me know where you guys stand between the two. Obviously, it's a big jump in price. Whether adaptive dampers and Super Cruise is enough to value for you guys to switch. Obviously, I bought the Equinox, so that's what I felt that my dollars were better spent going there and saving that $16,000 difference for me here, and anyways in Canada. Comment below which one you guys going with and why is what I'd like to hear. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.